everyone, and welcome back to another roundup. Wow, it is a spicy time for the gaming news. I mean, seriously, what's going on with Epic and Apple is something that's actually, it's reverberating beyond gaming. It is a truly insane story in what's going on. And today we've got a bit of a double whammy of news because Apple have accused Tim Sweeney of asking for special treatment. Now, this means that Apple basically are calling him a liar, and they're also implying that, yeah, he wanted special treatment. There's plenty to break down there because it is a bit more nuanced. Now, in other words, Tim, man of the people Sweeney and company have locked Hitman 3 into an Epic Game Store exclusive. Well, that's a bit of a spicy way to put it. Of course, they offered a deal to IO Interactive, and IO did take that deal. And that does mean that Hitman 3 will be an Epic Game Store exclusive on PC when it releases in January. Now, of course, that's just the latest in a series of moves for IO Interactive's extremely rocky journey in general. Those three Hitman games, well, the two that are out, are absolutely incredible, but have had just really bizarre circumstances plague them. Now, Epic, of course, they're fairly right in wanting to drive down store fees and advocate for their 8812 and things like that. But as always, Epic gets so aggressive when they think that they are right that I do believe they are becoming the patron saint of poisoned wells. So that's what we're covering in today's video. Of course, hit that sub button. That is your, that's the button you hit to get the content. There's a whole bunch of content we want to do daily. We're working to get there, but it pretty much should be, within a few months, one video every day. So 365, maybe more. Who the hell knows? With that said, hit that sub button and let's get into the situation. Alright, so we got recent court filings from Apple that allege that Epic Games have asked for special arrangements with Apple, and Apple have provided 3 emails from Tim Sweeney, the Epic CEO, as proof of this. Mail number 1. Epic, it's Tim writing, but yeah, they do literally ask for special treatment, but Tim also does say in the email, quote, "We hope that Apple will also make these options equally available to all iOS developers," and it does go on to say that the goal is to have iOS development be as competitive as development is on computers, because of course, be it Mac or Windows, you can get things directly from devs, you can get things from stores, whatever. It's pretty free and open. Now, this is obviously all in regards to offering direct payments and being able to launch their own app store on iOS. Now, of course, direct payments is an interesting thing because it's basically Epic's attempt to recharacterize the 30% Apple Store fee as a payment processing fee. I think Apple wouldn't view it that way, but in trying to characterize it like that, that's Epic trying to sort of build up anti-competitiveness. But yeah, it still is a weird way to reframe it, I would say. Or at least I think most people would see it that way. Now, the mail does end rather interestingly because it does say that if Apple doesn't reply, then Epic understands that Apple is not willing to make the changes necessary to allow Epic to provide Android customers the option of choosing App Store and payment processing. Now, I thought that was a little bit weird of them to say. My read into that is it's basically Epic saying, if we can't do this on iOS, then, we can't do it in mobile, we can't do it everywhere. Now, that's weird. I guess, is it them just trying to bring more of the anti-competitiveness angle in there? Because, of course, with Android, it doesn't need to have complete feature parity with iOS, so even if it meant, them doing specific backend work, I'm not particularly sure what the point of that really was. Anyway, fast forward to mail number 2, and, it seems that Apple handed the previous mail off to legal, and Tim mailed back to the Apple executives, calling, and there are many of the executives, by the way, that you will recognize if you've ever watched, an Apple keynote, but Tim fires back saying that the response was self-righteous and self-serving, and that only lawyers could pretend that Apple is protecting customers by denying choice in payment and stores. Now, this is when we get back to the thing I've been saying. If you accept the 30% store cut as just a payment processing fee, then yeah, I could see how you could see Tim to be right. But I think most people in Apple would probably say the 30% is not just for payment processing. It's the cut that you agree to give Apple in order to sell on their platform. As an example, if you're to compare Steam and Epic, I do think that cuts should be a bit closer to what Epic are doing, and I do think that Steam's 30% is too much. That said, I will say this. I would be more than happy to pay a higher cut to Steam because they would be offering customers, if I was, whenever we're putting games out, because we will be putting them out on Steam, don't worry, but I would be happy to give Valve a higher percentage because they are giving users a better features and a better experience. So yeah, I do think they deserve a little bit more there. But this is just him trying to characterize the 30% as payment processing, when in reality, I really don't think it is just that. But anyway, it's pretty clear from mail number 2 that Apple denied Tim. And Tim ends the email by making it very clear that the companies disagree strongly, and he calls out Apple's roots when it comes to like open development and things like that. Of course, though, it's not until mail number 3 that things get a little bit more spicy. And this is taking place on August 13th, and it really is where Tim Sweeney decides to unzip. So, Epic mails the Apple executives again to tell them just that they are actually launching direct payments on iOS. Tim says that history and the law are on his side. And as a little sidebar, I don't know, sometimes whenever people say history's on their side, I mean, it sometimes is kind of like a, self-righteous thing that can go a little bit iffy sometimes. So I'm like, Tim, do you really want to be just going there saying that history's on your side? I think you could, Maybe he even wrote this email expecting it would surface and he just wanted to be a bit, bit extra with it. But anyway, he says that history and the law are on his side. He calls up the antitrust concerns, essentially that, Apple is running the store in a anti-competitive way and that it is basically just against the idea of a free society. So, yes, don't let 2020 become 1984. That's, them, of course, aping Apple's 1984 ad campaign. It's, of course, the one that they've then launched. And I mean, there are ways where I do feel like this is Epic really trying to blow the thing out of proportion, obviously to their own benefit. Now, it does end with a warning, right? This warning says that if Apple chooses to take punitive action, then Epic will be in conflict with Apple on creative, technical, business, and legal fronts for as long as it takes to bring about change, potentially for many years. So, those are the emails, and really, that last point about it being for many years, that's Tim kind of saying, I am here for the long haul, we are going to war. Now, I find this to be quite interesting, because if you look at Epic, they have a lot of money, but if you look at Apple's recent news, look at their stock ticker, which is when, they're above $2 trillion now in market cap. Yeah, it's a $1 billion company versus a $1 trillion company. Now, here's the thing, that means that Apple can outspend the hell out of Epic legally. Right? They can do that easily, probably without noticing. Okay? So that's a situation where Epic cannot win one-on-one. So Epic will be trying to win in a more sort of asymmetric fashion, right? Thinking that they have strengths that will overcome really Apple just being the humongous, 500-pound gorilla. A gorilla is probably way more than 500 pounds anyway, Apple's this just roided up muscle man, and Tim Sweeney's just a programmer with a whole bunch of money from a legal perspective in terms of like Apple's ability to smack them down. So Tim I think he clearly does believe that there is a legal case there, because how else would he actually win this in a situation where he can't outspend Apple legally, right? Like that's kind of what's going on here. I do think that's kind of interesting. So what's also odd to me, not odd, I suppose it's odd to me as a layman, but if I was a legal professional, this would probably not be odd. So Apple brought up these emails to say that Tim was asking for special permission. Now, did Tim ask for special permission? Yes, indeed he did. He laid out exactly what Epic wanted to do. Now, he did also say that those same things should be extended to all other developers, but that was a tiny part of the overall first email that Tim sent. So I would have to wonder here that from a legal perspective, if this is Tim defending himself on Twitter, people will see that he said that line. They'll be like, oh yeah, obviously we agree. But I wonder if you were examining this from a legal perspective, if that really is just like a little throwaway line that perhaps doesn't mean all that much. Certainly when I look at some of the legal opinions that have came out here, it seems like that may be a little bit more of the case. Tricky to tell, and I'm not going to pretend that I have any degree of expertise in that field. Now, in principle, I think some of that stuff is fair enough. Like, in principle, yes, Epic did ask for some special permission, but they also did ask that every developer sort of, be just afforded all of these freedoms that Epic wants to be afforded on iOS. But This is when I would say we should maybe move into reality a bit and try to be a bit more pragmatic, because we can talk about principles, but then sometimes principles don't always play out the way that you think they would. So if you take a totally open, fair, super free, super deregulated situation, then in principle, it's perfect competition and it's just going to be wonderful. In reality, that kind of often will not always work out that way. So if we think about this situation here, right? Every developer and every customer would, I'd say, benefit from a more efficient payment option. I think that is true. However, Epic would probably benefit more because they have more customers, so they would get a disproportionate benefit there. But where it really matters, though, is with the store thing, because Epic did ask to have the ability to have a store on iOS, so you could have the App Store ran by Apple and the Epic Store ran by Epic on your iPhone. Now, the thing is that only massive companies like Epic would benefit from being able to deploy their own storefront, and if they did deploy their own storefront, then Epic would be able to kind of compete in a way that is fair, right? But fair, I'd say in an absolute sense, but kind of unfair in other ways. And here's what I mean. The Epic Game Store on iOS, well, what it could do is it could start to pay for exclusives, right? So you could have, I don't know, I'm not imagining like Evernote only available on the Epic Game Store iOS, but if you understand there, right? Sure, any developer could open up their own storefront and have whatever terms they want, but Epic, by virtue of being $1 billion company with all of that cash flow, they could quite easily just snap up everything that they want. Because, yes, if you think about the PC situation, is Epic good and competitive towards Steam? Yes, but those exclusives, they hurt more than just Steam. They also hurt GOG, they hurt Humble, etc., etc., etc. So it's an interesting situation, because if iOS was deregulated, and I don't mean that in a government sense, I mean that in an Apple sense, right? So that if it was a situation where Apple wasn't like the big government of iOS, and you could just sort of roll your own store in iOS if you really wanted to, if that was kind of deregulated, then you could absolutely say that the likes of Epic Games would benefit from that in a disproportionate fashion, because they are the people poised to actually best make use of that opportunity. And I would have to wonder to what degree things like that would actually be relevant in this upcoming lawsuit, because yes, Epic are asking for a bunch of things that would be good for all developers, but I think you could say would be especially good for them. So I'd have to wonder if any analysis of like their motive or things like that would actually apply. Of course, I'm not going to give you any firm legal readings here. This obviously is a channel about punditry, right? So you do have to bear that in mind. Now, of course, a lot of this stuff also applies to PC. Epic can deal with a lower margin on their store. Why? Well, if you think about it, they've got the Unreal business, they've got Fortnite, they can waive Unreal Engine 4 or 3, whatever, or 5, anyway, Unreal Engine license fees for copies of games sold in their store, right? They're kind of vertically integrated in a few different ways, and that does mean that they can just offer these unique benefits. They can compete in ways that, say, Valve can't, because not everybody is making Source games. Far more people are making Unreal games than Source games, so that's just another way that Epic can compete. And I think there's a key learning here, and it's one of the more uncomfortable ones, because I think we're always told you just need to work hard and you just need to grind. And I think there's, obviously, working hard is extremely important, but, if you're always playing on an even field and you're just trying to compete by working harder and harder, you're just going to run out of time, right? You can't really work more than 120 hours a week if you're really getting down to it. And that's why you never want to play in a fair field, right? Unless it's sports. Sports is a special thing where we bracket it off and we demand fairness. But other than that, you want to find your unfair advantage and exploit that. And that's what Epic are really good at doing. And that term, unfair advantage, maybe that something that sometimes is a euphemism for competitive advantage. And that is how Epic roll. I think we see them do this time and time and time again. And I think this entire recent saga of Epic Games is absolutely typical of that, especially in the PC market, especially with, of course, Unreal Engine and the Epic Game Store, and how basically both of those can be leveraged together. Because seriously, if you are selling copies of your game on the Epic Game Store using the Unreal Engine, you are doing incredibly well. But of course, if you're selling that on Steam, well, hey, sure, Epic don't get the store sale money, right, from Steam, but they still get your engine licensing fee, which is pretty sweet for them. Okay, Epic situation 1 covered. It's now time for Epic Situation 2, but it's also one that is just a little bit weird and interesting. So, IO Interactive, they make the Hitman games. Of course, there was the one Hitman game, Absolution, which was a bit naff, but other than that, pretty special franchise, I would say. Now, they made an announcement this week, and basically they said that the decision to actually go with an Epic Game exclusive was a very welcome deal, because it's basically allowing them to self-publish the game. Now, the thing is that IO Interactive have been wanting, and they've been open about wanting this, to pursue self-publishing for a long-ass time, and this Epic deal reportedly gave them the freedom to create the game exactly how they wanted it. Now, one key point here is that Hitman 3 is the end of a trilogy that IO have kind of always treated like one really big game. I think if you play them, you'll really feel that. But the thing is, they've had a crazy time, like shifting publishers during the series. That's one fairly large thing, to happen, and now it's going on to an Epic Game Store exclusive. And the thing is that these games are, they're incredible, but they're also kind of cursed. And if you want to understand a bit of that curse, I would say take a look at Super Bunny Hop's video about Square Enix's live service push and how it impacted the first Hitman reboot. What's insane is that I believe it also impacted the Just Cause game that came out around that time and was really not that good. But yeah, that whole push for live services, that kind of messed up the first game. They barely recovered from it, even though they did a great job making the game. Then there was Hitman 2, and just the whole thing's a crazy saga. But, of course, as a part of the, I think, unique appeal of these games being a real trio, is that the save data carries over between installments, and also the previous game content is actually instantly accessible within the new game, so you can get any, engine upgrades, graphical upgrades, things like that. Now, IO have assured their fans that that still is going to be the case, but they're yet to elaborate on how that actually will work within the framework of Epic Game Store exclusivity. Of course, there will be ways to manually transfer save data from Steam to Epic, so I imagine that's the baseline, and that they'll probably have a more elegant solution. So that's what's happened. Next, though, let's talk a bit about the rationale behind it. In short, money, but the Epic deal is the latest step in what's been a pretty long journey for IO. They're evidently pretty proud of their status as an independent studio, and just their desire towards moving towards self-publishing. That's something that's pretty well documented, and I would say, as somebody who likes that studio, I'm kind of sad that it is via an exclusivity deal happening, but there is a bit of me that's like, yeah, IO Interactive, they're a bit more free, maybe they can do whatever they want without restrictions, that's pretty cool. But of course, the Epic Game Store exclusivity is a little bit sad, because I don't like exclusives. Now, it has been difficult to get things off the ground, though, so they survived the 2017 split from Square Enix, only to go to Warner Brothers with the sequel. Now, the two also signed a publishing deal for a mysterious new IP. Now, IO are self-publishing Hitman 3, this time with the help of things like the Epic deal. So it seems like self-publishing is a pretty big thing for them, but as I think many independent studios have got to do, it's all about working out, who's going to publish this game, who's going to publish that game, maybe we can publish this game, and just all of that deal making to keep things ticking over. So overall, with the impact of this, basically it does mean that this trio of Hitman games will be completed. 2 is pretty great, 3 hopefully will be pretty great, and hopefully won't have the issues of the first one that stemmed from its very bizarre development cycle. Again, that Super Bunny Hop video on it is really quite good. Now, I do have to wonder, just how thinly spread they are, because they do seem to have quite a few projects going on now that, they've got the second unique IP that is, I believe, being published with Warner Brothers, so certainly is interesting. Now, moving on to the community reaction, well, there is a little bit of general dislike of Epic, yes, but it is actually, I'd say, to an outsider's perspective, a bit strange how little backlash that there is. Now, IO themselves do appear to have been expecting backlash. Their official announcement of the Epic deal is buried in a development update where they also happen to reveal a major new level. But then again, we've long said on the channel that the communities, they tend to be just kinder to developers who seemingly needed an exclusivity deal rather than just kind of wanting one to get the quick cash. And I think IO, they've been very open about how the deal will further themselves as a studio. They've very clearly stated their goals to get more independence over time. Now, the Hitman series is still fairly niche. I'd say it's blockbuster niche, like many of us know about it, but in terms of people who actually play it, yeah, it's a pretty dedicated community for Hitman, and I think for a lot of those people, they'll probably have to grit their teeth a little bit at the Epic Game Store exclusive stuff, but I also do think they know that, well, there's only really one place where they're going to get Hitman games, and it is IO Interactive, perspective. So I think for a lot of them, they're going to be thinking, well, IO probably got a lot of upfront cash for this. It probably is something that's allowed them to, maybe it's one of those like minimum sale sort of target like agreements that we've heard that Epic do in the past. So if it's one of those, then it probably is really good for the health of that franchise. So I think that's a situation where the community of that game will, I think, just understand why it happened and probably just be happy that they're getting more classic style Hitman content, because being real, Hitman Absolution happened, and I've got to imagine that a lot of, say, the Hitman Blood Money fans were a little bit worried about just the future of that style of gameplay, feeling like they maybe would never get it again, and they now are getting it. So because of that, I just do feel like they're just going to want to get that no matter how. So there you go. That's basically the news for today. Very, very epic in content, but also scope, because yeah, I mean, bringing up the Sherman Act, right? Big antitrust cases against Apple at the same time that, Tim, Sundar, I was about to call him Robot Man, the Zuck, they're all doing hearings with the Senate. I think it's the Senate. Maybe it's the House. Maybe who knows? It's America. I don't live there. It's not really any of my business, but they're all, the big tech boys talking to, I don't know, the crusty suit boys from the government, right? About, I guess a lot of that's about antitrust stuff as well. So, it really is massive in scale, and I think it's the type of thing, actually, it's one of those rare situations where us actually sitting here talking about gaming news is kind of giving a lot of real knowledge and real learning, because it's intersecting with a lot of really important real-world principles that in some ways are about how we sort of organize ourselves as a society, the rules that we sort of decide are okay to, to play by when it comes to what all these companies are doing. So, yeah, it's a bit sad in one way that it's sort of annoying, dramatic news, but also it's actually genuinely interesting, and I think something that we can all learn a lot from, so worth talking about. Anyway, that's it for me. If you want to check out some gaming news, hey, we've done 3 videos in the last 2 days, so you can check those out, and of course hit that sub button, because there will be a lot of content. Trust me, I even looked at our Excel spreadsheet of upcoming videos, and bloody hell, there's quite a few of them. So cheers, and I'll see you next time.